As I mentioned earlier, we conclude the Gospel of John, the chapter 6 chapter, the Bread of Life discourse. And Jesus asked the question to the apostles, do you also want to leave? Because the other disciples, Jesus was giving this discourse to potential disciples, followers. They walk away, as we heard, to return to their former way of life because the teaching was so hard. My flesh and my blood, true food and true drink. Now, if you and I had been numbered among those disciples, what might we have done? Being honest, we probably would have thought, like them, what? Eat my flesh, drink my blood? That's horrible. And so they leave. We would leave. Would we leave? Now, what happens now in our understanding, of course, we affirm what? But Jesus said it in a little different way. That the bread and wine become God. That's a shocking teaching. They become God. Wow. Now, what's the Eucharist? This meaning the problem did not go away after the first few centuries. In the 13th century, we have the Albigensian heresy in France, which denied sacraments, because for them, only spirit is good, matter is evil. Well, how can you have water and oil and bread and wine become God in some way or communicate God's grace? It's evil. So the church had to respond to that. The 15th century, actually the 16th century, Reformation, where it split the church. And from that became many denominations who have downgraded the meaning of the Eucharist to basically a memorial supper, not sacrifice, not true presence. And there are many Catholics who remain faithful to the church across a lifetime, despite many honest doubts and soul-searching and anger and dissent, because of the Eucharist. In my priesthood, I've met enough people who left the church and came back saying, Father, Monsignor, I miss the Eucharist. They come home. Perhaps they identify easily with Peter. Master, to whom shall we go? You have the words of everlasting life. So in the end, as we conclude chapter 6, you and I believe the bread and wine, by the power of the Spirit, become the very reality of Christ's body and blood, because he who is true God, true man, says so very clearly. And he's God, man. God cannot deceive or be conceived. Now, Jesus, his challenging statements are not limited to this teaching. He had many difficult and challenging things to say, because being a follower of Jesus, it's not for wimps. Some of us, not us, some people want to reduce Christianity to be a nice person. You don't have to love Jesus and give him your life to be a nice person. A lot more than that. I think sometimes when we think of Jesus, we often emphasize what? His gentler side, right? Compassion, love of sinners, forgiveness, patience, healing. And perhaps we are tempted to stop there. A lot more to Jesus than just that. He would confront the Pharisees and scribes on a regular basis. He would fearlessly speak the truth and not back down, as we saw in today's gospel. He would say to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." That's not very nice. In response to Peter's misdirected attempt to protect Jesus from his suffering that he had just predicted was coming. He would take on Satan and devils in a mere word, they'd flee. He would command the sea to be still. It would obey. He would face false accusations, betrayal, a kangaroo court, brutal torture, and death on a cross. He did all that out of obedience and submission to the Father's will. He did all that out of a profound love for you and me, that we would know him as Savior. I would say he manifested great masculine strength also in fulfilling his mission of saving the world. Men, I address you, men in the congregation. There's a lot of confusion about what it means to be a man in our culture. The ideology of the day declares that sex differences, male-female, are not a matter of nature, but of social construct. Society determines male and female. Well, that denies millennia of human experience and scientific fact. The sexes are different but equal. We're wired differently. So, in the confusing times we may have of what it means to be a man, where do we look for a definition? To Christ. Yes, he is true God, true man. Yes, he is human. Yes, he's for everybody, but he came as a man. I offer you Jesus. I said earlier, following him is not for wimps. And men, he challenges you, I include myself, to heroic virtue. In the reading from Joshua, he challenges the people, decide which gods you will serve. The gods of the Amorites, or the true God and only God who brought you forth from slavery to freedom. And he declares to the assembled people, as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Men, if you are fathers, Christ wants you to say, as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord and accept and embrace the father leadership, husband leadership of the family. Don't exclude women. Women have their own unique leadership role, but men need to reclaim being a spiritual head of the family. Because you have an irreplaceable, essential role in God's plan to help your family become holy. We call God Father, Son, and Spirit. Your child's experience of God the Father is connected directly to their experience of how you love them and father them. That takes a lot of selflessness and sacrifice and much more. It's not for wimps. Men, if you are married, Jesus says through St. Paul in the reading from Ephesians, husbands, love your wives as Christ loves his church, the bride. The church is Christ's bride. He's the bridegroom. How does Christ love his church? Faithfully, cherishing her, dying for her. That's how you're to love your wife, helping her grow in holiness. That takes selflessness, sacrifice, and a lot more. It's not for wimps. If you're not married and not a father, Jesus, priests, we're still called to be men of God. Our culture needs us to be men of God. That takes selflessness and sacrifice and much more. It's not for wimps. Now I'll invite Daryl, music. Keep recording up there, Dylan. Keep recording. Daryl, come up. He's going to encourage you guys to sign up for That Man Is You, to learn what it means to be a man of God in the image of Jesus.
Good morning. My name is Daryl Musey, and I've been asked to speak with you today about an exciting new men's program called That Man Is You. That Man Is You is unlike anything that you've experienced. It tackles real issues facing real men in their roles as husbands and fathers, helping them to stay fixed on Christ and make the right decisions in today's world, and that's something that we all need help with. That Man Is You is one of the premier men's programs in the Catholic Church in America. Men who have attended say That Man Is You is the program that they have been waiting for. They consider it a home run, saying, it's hard to imagine how the program content could be any better. I guess the best way to judge a program is by its success. So let's listen to some testimonials from men in a local parish in the Pittsburgh Diocese who has run this program. Quote, I'm 65 years old and fell away from God years ago. That Man Is You opened my eyes, and now I am back. Another man said, quote, I came to That Man Is You to learn more about my faith, and in the process, I have become more devout in my prayer life. Most importantly, my relationship with God has reached new heights. A new member to the parish said, quote, once I started, I was addicted to the group. Each week, you learn amazing things, no matter how much you think you already know. Another man said, quote, That Man Is You has helped me to become a better father and husband. St. Agnes is hosting That Man Is You every Saturday morning in Resurrection Hall, starting September 8th for 13 consecutive weeks. We'll meet at 8:30 for a continental breakfast and fellowship. Then at 9 a.m., we'll watch an engaging video that combines the best scientific research with the teaching of the church and the wisdom of the saints. It's followed at 9:30 a.m. with breakout groups to provide the opportunity to discuss what we've learned and what's been presented. We will end at 10 o'clock so that you can be back with your families and friends. I'll be in the narthex after Mass with a couple of other gentlemen to answer questions and help with registration. I'm asking you to give That Man Is You a shot. I promise you won't be disappointed.